Welcome back to the Hands-On Business Podcast. If you are a returning listener or viewer, then you know what to expect. However, if you're new, then this is where you come to get tips, tricks, and advice on growing your business. Now, I was coming out of a shop the other day, and I was delighted to bump into one of my listeners who was actually waxing lyrical to his dad about how many tips he got from the show that he's now actually implementing. Now, that really humbled me, to be honest, because you're always hoping that's what people are getting from the show. But when someone's standing in front of you telling you that, it's quite inspiring, as that's what your aim always is and always has been, i.e. giving tips that people can actually implement. So, I'm your podcast host, Hakeem Adebiyi, and I've grown several small businesses to multi-million-pound enterprises, and I noticed that there wasn't really a place that was focused on where I was, i.e. growing a small business. All the content seemed to be about big business and often just a lot of theory, not really any practical implementable advice. So today we're going to talk to Alex Onalaja, a young inspirational man who started life in Nigeria, was labelled as unintelligent due to what he found later was actually dyslexia, but now is a tech influencer, an author, and owner of a successful marketing agency. His story alone is inspiring, let alone the practical tips he's going to give in this podcast. So today, we're going to be talking about online marketing growth hacks post-pandemic. So Alex will take you through the difference in marketing pre and post-pandemic, online marketing, as well as giving 5 things you need to be doing now to grow your business online. The great thing about the tips are that they are simple and inexpensive things that anyone can do. So tune in, listen to Alex's inspiring story, and learn what you need to do to drive your business online. Happy listening. Welcome, Alex. Good to have you on the show today. Always love having on the show authors because you get great insights. So looking forward to what you have to tell us. Now, at the moment, and Alex will go into this in some detail, he runs his own marketing agency, if you can see in the background there, Tad 360, and he's known for being a natural problem solver. Now, that ability to problem solve may well have come from the fact that he struggled with education when he was younger, and then later on he found out that that was because he had dyslexia. He didn't know that at the time, which meant that he had to try and find different ways to get all of his numerous qualifications, which weren't necessarily the way that everyone else did it. And now Alex, has been featured in Forbes. He was named in the top 50 inspiring, prominent and influential voices in the UK Black Tech. And he's got his own book, now found, Secret to Unlocking Your Hidden Potential in 30 Days. Actually, it's lost, now found, actually.
Correct.
So lost is quite important. So that's interesting. We're going to be talking about that. So, because there's lots of other stuff that we're going to explore. But on this episode, what the topic is online marketing growth hacks post-pandemic, if indeed we are post-pandemic. So welcome, Alex.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's always been a pleasure to actually come on this show, but finally I'm here. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you very much for coming on. So let's start at the beginning, which is what I try to do with all my guests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how did somebody who has dyslexia, because this is a really, I think, important and inspirational tale, get so many qualifications in the first place? So tell them what qualifications you've got, so they know what to about. And then, and then you then moved into an industry which lots of people may think, that's not necessarily an ideal choice for someone with dyslexia. So just talk us through that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say early stages were probably engineering. So basically I completed diploma or big tech, they call it back then, in engineering, electrical and electronic engineering. And fast forward into university, I continued basically studying there for 3 months in engineering itself, and realized it's just more reading and more paperwork. So I just thought, no, I have to find something a bit more technical because I love numbers. I'm a maths and physics type of guy. I don't like English literature. I dabbled myself into IT. I did that up until the final year, which is when I was told basically, guy, you're gonna fail. If you continue like this, you're absolutely gonna fail. And luckily for me, basically someone introduced me to an assessor who happened to be a neurodiversity assessor at the time. And they basically said, based on my pattern of behavior and the way I kind of process data, they believe it's probably more likely something relating to dyslexia. And you can imagine a young man from, Africa who's actually spent half of his, his life in Africa, not knowing anything about dyslexia. All I just know is I'm dumb, according to a lot of teachers from back home. And to now coming to a point where I'm now recognizing what is actually affecting the way I process information. And it's not even necessary, I won't say affecting, it's the reason why I process information the way I process it. Until you know your why, everything else doesn't make sense. And now that I actually understood why, it was a mixed emotion. One was, it was enlightening to know, what dyslexia is, and even neurodiversity, and how, ADHD and everything are all literally all cousins to each other. And secondly, basically, it meant I could actually reach out to the right resources to actually help me. And I was very fortunate enough. Maybe my parents knew about this, I don't really know, but I think they just wanted a better life for us. Was the ultimate aim. And UK is actually very supportive in terms of, they're actually one of the most supporting countries that actually support people with neurodivergence. And and practically it's just literally just skipped uni just by just few grades. I was few grades off. I've not checked my results up to now, but I'm sure it's probably not the ultimate best. But completed that, and I literally graduated during the recession recovery. So that would have been 2018 was the recession, 2012 was the recovery point. And that basically meant a lot of businesses are literally, they're struggling with cash, and they were trying to make sure they iron the best talent in the industry. And I applied, funny enough, applied for over 1,000 jobs. And some of them were like, 3 days application. So they'll send you the first one, write about this. Why should we employ you? Why are you the person for this? So you just keep going on. And day 4 comes by and you don't get anything anymore. And you'll be like, guys, anyone there type of thing. So there was a lot of that going on, a lot of unfortunately, I'm afraid, in the email. So it got to even a point where when I see the email, the first thing, I don't even try to read the content of it. I just do Control F and I just put the word afraid or unfortunately. If that comes up, straight up, I just delete the message. After applying for about 1,000 jobs, it struck me at that point that I am actually not employable. And reason being, well, looking back now, in my opinion, is one thing employer don't like to hear is that you're a liability. It literally, it doesn't sit well with any employer. The fact that they have to provide you with certain resources, like your computer have to be, wired a different way. Practically everything just sounds wrongly wired, basically, from employer's point of view. So as a result, straight away, you become a liability and they don't want to actually have you as part of their assets. But here's what they're actually missing. 3 things about people with neurodiversity, people who are neurodiverse, is that we tend to be very loyal to the people who actually give us the most resources to see our full potential. And as a result, the retention basically is far greater. I'm actually not making excuses for people who actually don't pull up their own weights. There are people who are, naturally lazy, but I'm not sticking up for those people. People who are actually very, very active, very proactive, and, are the go-getters, basically, who happen to be on a spectrum of any kind, basically I really appreciate a good boss who actually look after their best interest. And then as a return of their loyalty, basically, they'll go above and beyond to help that company basically reach their full potential as well. But going back to the question, so at that point, basically, I came to a realization that I'm not employable. And then very quickly, I just switched off. Like most people would actually do it, just give up, okay? So I gave up back for a good 1 year. So that's 2012 into 2013. I was literally offline. I was drinking more. I was sleeping all day. I was on, what I think it used to be called job seekers allowance at the time. I just go in, sign in, just to get my little mini check. I was broke. And I can just imagine this as a young African man. It's a lot of pressure. Like my family, we are very academically inclined. So like most people are like PhD holders and doctors and, all this type of big names, Cornells and all that. And I'm just there like, what exactly am I doing in my life? I'm an absolute waste of time. My My parents have actually brought me to the UK to be a better person, but instead I'm actually just going worse and worse. And yeah, so in that dark moment, which now I'm looking back now, I recognize it's actually depression. But at the time, again, from my background, depression is not really a thing. It's actually just a state of mind. So I in that dark moment, basically scribbled on a lot of papers, writing. It's in my gene. My dad is a book author as well in his early days. So it's kind of in our gene to talk a lot and obviously filled with a lot of wisdom. And sometimes applying it for me has always been the most challenging thing, because if I try to write, people be like, oh, we can, it's a lot of grammars, there's a lot of spelling errors, and it just kind of demotivates me and just don't make me want to do anything. So I basically just took that time out the whole year to myself to kind of realign myself with my objectives. Like, what am I here for? I might be just a small matter, basically, which obviously anything that has weight and occupies space. Don't ask me how I remember that. It's just one of those things from science that I've just been told a very long time ago. And obviously in the middle of nowhere, basically just being useless. And I just thought, no, wait a minute, I cannot be that useless, because it took me back to a moment when I was much, I'll probably say much younger, in my early days in Nigeria. So, like I said before, maths and physics is actually my favorite subject. Only because there's less words and there's actually more actions like numbers. So there was this test at the time. It was a 14-question test, and there was 200 students. And you can imagine in Africa as well, you have the same class, but it will have class A, class B, class C, etc. So there was 4 classes basically, and in total, there were about 200 students. So the exam came through. It was a test, sorry. Came through, and only 2 people got 13 out of 14. Okay. And as you can imagine, the moment they said, well, only 2 of you got 13 out of 14. My first impression was like, yeah, good for them. Okay. Because I don't care. Because I already know where I stand. I'm probably going to be like, the neutral number. They mentioned the first person's name. Everyone was super excited. Like, yeah, go, yeah, you're great. That's because he's known for being, is a mathematical genius. But when they mentioned the second person's name, the whole room went silent, because no one could believe it. They were like, huh? Him? You sure it's not a mistake? Even the teachers said they actually doubted the results as well, and they actually got other teachers to remark the work several times, and they all came to the same conclusion that yes, the answers are correct. And this is not simple mathematics. This is almost equivalent to further mathematics in the UK standards. And that moment, basically, I took that moment away with myself for a very long time, saying, every time I'm at my lowest, I use that moment to remind myself, I'm not dumb, I'm not stupid, I just don't know how to process the world I'm actually living in right now. And I basically used that again at that moment in my downtime in 2012 to 2013 to reassess myself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Like Superman knows the green stone is actually his weakness, but he doesn't walk around with that green stone in his pocket. Are you with me? He leaves that stuff at home or wherever it can be, far away. So we all know we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and it's how do you use your strength to complement your weaknesses?
Actually, that's I just like that metaphor. Actually, I'm just writing, don't carry around your kryptonite, because it's true, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Lots of people focus on their weakness, and they carry it around like it's in their pocket.
Absolutely.
How are you going to thrive if you've got your kryptonite with you all the time? So that's a good question. So it's because I often ask people, what's their superpower? And you're talking about strengths and weakness. So what would you say is your superpower? If you had one thing, you said, right, if I was a superhero, my superpower would be X. What's X?
Well, probably if it's just X, it's probably problem solving. But if it's X, Y, it's probably problem solving and the ability to predict the future.
Oh, okay. So talk to me about the ability to predict the future.
Yeah.
I might have to get my lottery numbers off you.
Maybe except the lottery numbers. But I have a tendency of actually being able to probably identify individuals who are actually made of greatness, but they just don't know it. So they carry the attributes. So let's say, or maybe a situation or individual or what have you, they carry the attribute to be great, but you can tell they're literally just, exercising 0.1% of their potential. But they have greatness in them and they're just not willing to actually, look into it. That's one thing. And how I actually transpired that basically is my mentees, for example, like I carefully select the people I work with because they have that kind of, I can see that vision from them. Some of them is actually like, one of them is actually, he's got 2 food chain restaurants at the moment. And when he initially started, he was just a very young man, had nothing to do with business. He's been in a lot of trouble with the police and everything. But when he realized his real potential, he literally just went all in and is, doing tremendously well. There's another one who's actually a charity entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, should I say. He's raised, over £200,000 for his charity, not-for-profit charity. He's grown his organization to 100 young people on the membership. He's grown his team basically to about 20-something team and still growing strong. So it's just those type of things. It's like something I realized or I recognize as one of my gifts and my skill sets. But just that major superpower is just problem solving.
Okay, excellent. So we'll get into that a bit later because you're going to help us with some problems,
Wow.
i.e. post-pandemic. So just before I go into that, obviously you've got TAD 360 on the background. So what? Just talk to me about that. Because there's not obviously, but there's often a lot of thought that goes into names. So I'm curious. Tell my listeners where that came from and what it means.
Right. Awesome. So basically, Think A Design was the initial name. Obviously, when you knew us back then, a couple of years ago, well, not a couple, it's been a good while. Think A Design was initially the name. As a new business, you run into a lot of branding issues. We had a big company basically reach out to us saying, "Hey guys, take that website down, take £1,000 or we'll come back with a lawsuit." And we're like, we don't know about that. So we basically changed the name at the time very quickly. And at the time, we basically kind of just thought, let's come up with anything. But we still like the whole idea of Think A Design. Before you do something, you have to think, right? It's a thought process. Yeah. And we kind of wanted to kind of also incorporate the fact that we do not just only websites, we do, the whole 360 of websites, like web application, web design, all those type of things, all those combination is basically a cup of tea. And in the end, basically, we just thought, Think A Design, TAD. And how do you actually make it holistic? Just put 360 on the spin. 360 sounds great. Well, graphic designer, basically, before I even finished the conversation, he said, yeah, this is what the logo is going to look like. That was Abe, by the way. It was like, this is what the logo is going to look like. And even had it on the merchandise and had it on the brollies and had it on everything. And he understood the vision and kind of very quickly we rebranded. And that's how that 360 was born.
Okay, excellent. So moving in to the topic. So actually, it's an interesting. So why? Because obviously, not obviously, but I ask my guests before they come on. I know what their expertise is. So I spoke to Alex, and we're talking about online marketing, social media management, etc. So, and I always ask them to come up with the actual title. So he was the one that said, well, actually, he wants to do growth hacks post pandemic and online growth hacks. So why was that a topic that you decided you wanted to talk about?
Right. That's because a lot of businesses actually still work in around or running their websites thinking people's thought process is still the same pre-pandemic. People's attention span has dropped. When I say dropped, it's dropped significantly to literally at the moment it's 3%. And it's actually, a goldfish is actually apparently between 7 and 8 seconds. So humans have actually dropped down to 3 seconds, which is obviously very worrying because in the near future, it'll probably be in milliseconds. And that is basically very scary because that literally means a blink. That's basically how quickly people would make decisions. And this can actually be seen from things like how we behave on social media. It's all about scrolls, how we engage with people, how we, give a first impression, like, all those type of things. The same behavior obviously continues online as well. People do exactly the same thing. But now what's actually changed? People, first of all, basically now rely more on online activities, especially during COVID, where everyone is restricted and you can't go anywhere. So work lifestyle, everything is now remote. People make more buying decisions using resources online, like reviews, social activities, how informative are you on the subject that is actually of interest to the people, and many more things. And that's kind of what we kind of trying to help businesses understand. Like, don't go in thinking that the whole tricks can actually always, win the dog over again. No, it's not going to work this time because people have really changed. And we've seen significant growth as well around all our commerce clients. Literally, one of them actually made in the millions, basically 7 figures, basically during the pandemic, only because they listened to what we actually say. I just said it back then. I said, like, what if there was something that just happens and obviously people just start buying ridiculously high? Is your business ready for that? And they go, well, we got a big warehouse. We should be able to handle it. I'm like, I'm not referring to your business from that spot. I'm talking about a website. Can a website actually handle 10,000 monthly traffic or anything of that nature? He said, well, you're the guys for that. Well, I was like, yeah, sure. You hired us, right? So let us get to work. So we got to work, make sure the website is actually very robust. You know, the weight balance, basically, in terms of if there's high volume or low volume, the website behaves exactly the same. We optimize everything. And just like a joke, 3 months in, pandemic came in. And they were bagging it. They were literally just, you know, they had to recruit people so quickly in that short period of time, even despite, you know, COVID restrictions and everything. They did really well, is the moral of the story. So what am I actually getting at with this? It's like people's buying behavior has extremely changed. Like most of our top deals, for example, are closed over Zoom. Back in the days, it's actually usually in-person meeting. But obviously now, how do you remove the frictions around like online conversion? It's relatively the same. Like you need eye contact, you need, you know, body language is very important. Don't cross your hand because people automatically think you're being defensive. Listen more than you actually talk. Actually, it's something I've actually really taken on for someone that's actually very vocal, should I say, about to obviously, you know, exercise that. You've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them accordingly. And obviously listen to their pain points is one of the things we've also taken away. So how does this actually transpire on the online space? It's relatively similar. People are searching for different things because their lifestyles now change. They heavily depend on the internet, basically, for quite a lot of things. Then we have another mix in the bag as well. There's voice search. So a lot of people are actually using the likes of Alexa and every other, obviously, quick voice search around them to make buying decisions. Another one is actually a lot of visuals. So people are actually now relying on things like videos as well to actually help them with a buying decision, because it just helps them save them from reading, because someone's actually explaining it to them. And the last one basically is also podcast, audio. You'd be surprised. You'd be thinking, why would anyone in their right mind want to, you know, associate with my brand through just listening to a voice? But think about it. People spend time going to work, most of the time in traffic, most of the time even at home, downtime, you know, anything like that. And they just want something to kind of educate themselves. They don't want to pick up a book, but they have something of interest in them that they say, okay, I want to know about this. So the first thing they'll do is obviously either search online or voice search it. And you just want to make sure you're answering the questions as detailed as possible. And Google recognized this. And the last part basically is the fact that there's a growing number of people using mobile devices. And even 3G is now actually getting cut off. Vodafone actually announced not long ago that they're cutting off 3G from 2023. So that basically means any website that is too slow basically probably to end up crashing and on most customers' mobiles. And what do you do about that? Is what most people always ask us. So that's kind of where we come in and we share our solutions, which some of which I'll discuss in today's meeting. Today's interview.
So on that, because you say growth hacks, what does that actually mean? So when you say growth hacks, or, you know, just explain what you're talking about.
Right. So when you actually say growth hack, people usually think, oh, it has to be something very innovative, something that's never been done before. But it's nothing to do with that. From Google's point of view, or even more search engine's point of view, it's all about just customer-centric solutions. So make sure, obviously, your customers basically are getting the information they need as quickly as possible. If you can actually achieve that, then ultimately you're winning the audience over your competitors who are just directly just selling. No one likes to be sold to. Imagine if I came up to you and said, would you buy this pen? You'd be like, why should I buy the pen? Will be your first response. But if I actually say, have you heard about this pen? What pen? The pen can do this, it can do that, it can help you save time on this. And people just like factual information. But there's another thing as well to add to the mix. The buying audience, okay, are actually split. You can split them into 3 categories. So we like to call them the emotional buyers. So these are people who obviously are, they love your brand, they love what that 360 stands for example, and they just kind of like, they think we're great blokes and like to kind of just work with us. Then you have the logical buyers, okay? Logical buyers are more like data driven. It's like, what result have you actually achieved for your clients? Or, what result have you achieved in the last 3 months? Can we seek evidence of that? and you have the one night stands. One night stand don't care about you, your brand, or anything. They just need a solution. They need it as fast as possible, and they don't want to see anymore. A typical example of that is if you have someone with a punch of tires, they don't care about who or where you're located or anything like. As long as you can fix that problem for them as soon as possible, the better. So knowing those three categories of prospects, basically, then it comes down to like, how do you make it user-centric? Meaning basically you have to make sure when it comes to like, if you're a local business, make sure you have, you're heavily detailed on local directories. So that basically means 20-mile radius from yourself. If anyone search for your service, you want to make sure your business comes up first. Secondly, back it up with reviews. Get all your happy clients, get them to just give you a review. It only takes 1 minute to get that. And basically what that does for you is it becomes a social proof, because people actually buy from people is a saying. But when you're a business, how do they buy from you? They buy from the information you actually surround them with. So things like other people talking about your business, not about you talking about your business. Because most business fall into this habit of talking about themselves. We can all say hi all day, but clients don't care about that. So it's about understanding what the client really cares about and actually doubling down on that. Yeah, that's practically my just say ice on the cake, basically, on what we mean by growth hack. It's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about basically doing the right things and just doubling down on them.
So when you're talking about growth hacks, in terms of the actual end game, is that revenue driving, or is it website traffic driving, or is it both? Just in terms of when you talk about the growth hack, what if I implement growth hacks, what do I get at the end of it?
Absolutely. So basically you gain brand exposure. Basically you gain, because what people always get mixed up as well is like, they go, okay, right, we want 100 traffic to our website. Okay. But what they're forgetting basically is like, out of that 100, how many of them are actually turning into business? We often say 10%. If 10% of your website is actually not, website traffic is not actually transacting with your business, then there's something wrong with your conversion rates. So transaction could actually be, maybe they complete a form, they pick up the phone call, they send an email, anything of that nature from any of your online platforms. Basically, that's a conversion rate. And that's kind of one of the things we always say to people is like, focus on the conversion, not on the number of people that come to your website. Another thing people also fall the trap for is they go after things like keywords that no one is searching for. So for example, they'll be like, oh, we're ranking #1 for this keyword. I'm like, fantastic. So how many sales are you getting off the back of that? They can't measure it. And you know, the saying in marketing is like, or probably even sales as well, if you can't measure it, it's not working. So basically what we try to help businesses actually do to, to improve that basically is like implement tools, like for example, Google Analytics, Google Console, using third-party platforms like Microsoft Clarity to see the heat map of how people are behaving within the website. Because sometimes it could just mean your call to action button is in the wrong place. And people read in a figure 7 type of format. So they go 1, 2, boom, 1, 2. So if you try to do a call to action, make sure the call to action falls in that figure 7. Otherwise, if it's on the other side, it forces them to obviously think the other way around and automatically just think, one more scroll and I'm out, type of thing. So there's all that kind of little things you can actually change. And they're not really like, immensely large things. If it's your keywords, right, review your keywords. Which of your keywords are actually profitable keywords and which of your keywords are just for showing off purposes? And most, we all know most business owners, they just like to show off. Like, I want to just be able to, I want to be able to show my, my competitors that we are ranking for this number. But if it's not translating into transaction in the business, then that in itself is a problem. And when they say, oh, it's not working, the last thing we always ask them is, have you actually, when was the last time you did a website review? Because often your website could have actually been blacklisted a long time ago and you never knew about it. So an accountant is a typical example. We onboarded an accountant who said for many years, like, oh, our website is just a brochure website. I said, that's wrong. Like, why would you build a beautiful house in the middle of nowhere and nobody even knows it's there? He said, well, we don't know. So we did a quick website review and it came to my attention that the website was actually hacked in 2018. And funny enough, they actually didn't even know about it because the web pages were actually behind the scene. So you can see it from like, if you go to the home, about us or anything like that. But from the Google search results, you can actually see this content written in German. So the whole idea is they even did that. So these malicious guys are they're so crazy. They actually did it in German. So even if you come across it, it wouldn't alarm to you that it's something that is obviously worth looking into. But if you actually translate the German content, it's actually writing about Viagra. You know what I mean? So what's an accountant got to do with Viagra? And you can see, obviously, and even the content of those pages is actually far greater than the content of the actual business owner's content. So automatically,
that's a different kind of hacking, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And because people always say like we're not big enough to get hacked, that's rubbish. Because the hackers don't care about the significance of how big you are. They just look for as much vulnerable hosts that they can actually have globally to obviously do exactly the same instruction.
So
sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I'm just thinking because that's an interesting one, because the two things I wrote down as you were talking before was the figure of 7, which is, and the heat map, which is critical to know where people are going so that you can build things and put things in the same way. Obviously, looking at the keywords, because the amount of conversations you have with people about keywords, and you're right, they're very proud that they're ranking for something that gets like 2 visits.
Yeah,
and it's like, so why are you so happy? Like, or even the name.
Yeah.
Say, oh, look, I'm ranking #1 for the name of the company. Yeah, because no one else has your name.
Exactly.
Of course you're ranking for #1. But how many people are actually searching for your company's name? Because that's not the art of the game, isn't it? So give me your top, say, 5 growth hacks, and then we'll deep dive a bit into those ones.
Right. So first of all, the first one is basically scrap anything that's not working.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very obvious to actually see things are not working, and people just do it just because, Google does it all the time. Any applications or any product they put out there, like Google My Business, which other one was out there as well? I think Google Plus. They've tried it. So the moment they notice, obviously, that the user bases of those applications are actually very poor, they pull the plug. But most businesses.
So how do you know what's not working? Is probably the ultimate and obvious next question.
Yeah. So how you actually know it's not working is if it's not measured in the first place, it's not working. Because most businesses just jump into something because their competitors are doing it. But how is it integrated to the rest of your processes? And that's something else I'll probably jump into. The second point will be, is your marketing strategy all in line with each other? One thing is actually marketing, but another thing is obviously if you're contradicting yourself, you can also be getting very terrible results. So it's basically, is all your email, your marketing content, are they all saying the same thing? Are they all leading the customer to the same boat or the same water to fetch result? That's another one. Another one I'll probably consider is basically like businesses tend to fall into this habit of thinking marketing is a choice. It's not a choice, it's a necessity. If people don't know about your business, you could be the best plumber in the neighborhood or anything like that. If people don't know about your business, no one will buy from you. So it's very important to obviously always make sure, obviously, you are prominent in that space. I'll probably say, I mean, I've mentioned now, is that 3?
Yeah, that's 3. Yeah, I've got scrap what isn't working. Is marketing strategy being aligned, making sure all your marketing content's aligned, and then making sure you're prominent. Marketing is a necessity.
And probably one of the last one I'll probably say is work with the right tools from the early stage.
Yeah.
Because using the wrong tools can actually easily send your campaigns basically down the drain. Because I've seen cases like where they're running campaigns, people are making calls, but they picking and choosing and dropping, and it's just things are all over the place. So for example, if you have a contact form from your website, it needs to be connected to your internal CRM. All the information basically fed straight to it, so someone can pick it up, someone can track where it's actually been, what information it needs, follow up, and all this type of little touch points, because you need an average of 7 touch points with a prospect before they become a customer. So this could be through emails, this could be through someone picking up a phone call to them, this could be through social media social media outreach. It could be different points. So obviously, always make sure you keep that gate open there. And probably I'll say the last one is probably don't be a stranger to innovation, because Google will always forever change its rules. It's always going to change its rules. And it's a case of obviously making sure you understand the fundamental pillars of what makes a content great online. And if you can actually understand that, then your brand will always be in a winning seat, no matter what Google actually changes on its algorithm. And it's always about.
It's a very interesting point, that last one, because you see, I mean, you probably see less of it now, but in the early days, you'd have lots of people trying to game the system, shoving keywords, all over the place. And I remember someone saying to me very early on that actually, if you want to get great content, all Google is interested in is matching customers or individuals with the information that they're looking for.
Absolutely.
So if you write good content, which is informative and gets across the message that the people who are looking for, Google ranks you highly.
Absolutely.
So try to game the system is pointless. What you should be doing is try to put information which is useful for your target audience, basically.
Absolutely. And sometimes people even think like, oh, just target just your target audience. Like, if you don't actually understand the persona of your target audience, you might also be missing a trick. And people believe like everyone should actually consume data exactly the same way. That's not true. That's another disbelief or myth. Myth. Sorry, that people actually fall into, thinking that obviously like just write for writing's sake. No, it's about understanding the people who are actually about to consume your content and tailor the content in a way that it meets like majority of those people. So one of them could actually be people who don't like reading on white background. So I'm dyslexic, for example. Most of my apps or anything like that are all in black mode or dark mode. So as a result, it's easier for me to read and digest. And most browsers also have this functionality. So if you put in content in a way where it's not, black and white friendly, then automatically you're already losing a certain number of people. Another one as well that you can probably look out for as well is that when you actually write content as well, not everybody actually likes to read a whole content from top to bottom because it's time consuming for them. Remember what I said earlier? People's attention span has dropped. So instead, you can introduce things like postcards. So postcards can actually just be like a summary of everything you've actually discussed in that content, okay? And it's just easy bites. You can just read it and kind of get a grasp of what's in the whole material. Another thing you can also introduce is also audio read. So audio read will just be a recap of wherever you've actually put into the content. Most browsers actually support that, but not all PCs or machines are actually up to date to accommodate that. So if you're probably dealing with like an industry where you're targeting seniors, consider introducing the play button, and that makes life a lot easier for everyone. And maybe some element of videos if your resources actually, and even video is another one as well. People think the video has to be like, cinematic and all those top bit. No, you can actually just do a simple video from your phone, because people like when wherever they're actually doing is more relatable. If they feel like I can call this person and I can be sure that Alex will be on the other side within this company to pick up my call and help me with my inquiry. It's far better than when obviously you have this big giant, cinematic experience and everyone just like, okay, yeah, it's just some big company, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, get it out of my face type of thing. So there's all that element to it. Like small businesses need to start understanding it's literally COVID in it, as bad as it may seem. For most businesses, that's an advantage, because for small businesses, it resets the playing field. Most big businesses now, obviously, kind of like they've shoved so much money on the internet. Now they're thinking, oh, wait a minute, the table has changed. So we need to really draw back all our spending and reassess the playing field. And that kind of gives a better opportunity for your small businesses or small to medium-sized businesses to leverage that playing field. And with some of these tips I've actually shared, along with the right execution plan, I believe obviously they should be able to get greater results.
Yeah, no, I think what you just said there about it's almost like the democratization of business, because in the old times, I can't remember which business it was. It was a business, and this was pre-pandemic, and they got in. It was a food business, and they got some products into like Harrods and different places. And she, I remember watching on the program, and she said the reason why she was able to do it was because of social media and online marketing, because she said in the old days there's just no chance, because you'd have to know the buyers, you'd have to go and speak to people, but because you could post, and I think what she started doing was going to concerts and just saying to just finding a way to get hold of some of the stars on the red carpet and saying, would you just try this brand, and they should then post about it, and then people, oh, why is Miley Cyrus, for example, eating that brand, and then that person eating that brand, and it allows you to actually get access. If you know what you're doing, which is exactly what you're doing, what you're saying, if you know what you're doing, to people that you would never be able to. I mean, I see it in my business, because I do a lot of international stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in the old days, I'd have to fly to America, I'd have to fly to this place. Whereas all of a sudden I can be dealing with someone in South America.
Yeah.
I don't have to fly to South America now to deal with that person, as you said.
Absolutely.
You know, closing deals over Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 5 years ago, people would say, no, I need to see the person.
Not in a million years.
I need to press the flesh. I need
Yeah.
to, you know, I can't be doing business. I don't know them. And that's why I think, as you said, you got there, the trust pilot.
Yeah.
It's building that social proof, that trust, so people feel, actually, I am comfortable doing business with this guy or this lady without having ever have met the individual, because there's either enough people who've done it, so I feel comfortable, or there might not be loads of people, but because I've seen a video, or I feel that I know the person and I trust that person. And actually, what you said about the videos, I had that very conversation this afternoon. I can't remember what we were talking about. It was about videoing a product demonstration, and the person I was speaking to, oh yeah, but I said, it doesn't need to be Steven Spielberg. I said, get your phone, because as you said, people like authenticity.
Yes.
As opposed to, oh right, so they've gone out, they spent loads of money on it, and I may be wrong, but I always find that once you see someone spend that much money, especially if it's a local business, you're thinking, well, so they're putting all that into the pricing, aren't they? Because they've obviously got loads of money they're spending on that. So that means that's got to be recouped somewhere.
Absolutely.
Whereas you see a nice raw video, people connect and they're not thinking, oh, this is going to be expensive.
Yeah. It just have to be, people just like transparency. Like they like to feel like they can connect with your brand. And if they can do that, it's a icebreaker. It just makes a lot more things more, it makes things much easier to comprehend or to digest for both parties.
So what would you say is the hardest thing about online marketing? Because people, you know...
Time.
Yeah, okay.
Time. Because, for example, we've seen cases where customers or prospects basically want to do SEO, and they're like, where can we start getting results? I'm like, 12 months. They're like, what do you mean 12 months? They're like, well, we're not the internet. We are just influencers to the internet. You have to remember that. And we have a god of the internet where it controls 90% of the online search, which is Google, and the rest of them basically share the rest of the 10%. And did you actually know, just a fun fact out of thin air, the internet is basically, you know, what you and I basically do on Google search basically is only amounting for 3% of what actually goes on the internet.
Oh, really?
Yep.
What's the other 97%?
The dark web.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh dear.
Yeah. And people don't actually know that. So, which is why obviously sometimes when people actually like, you know, compromising accounts and stuff like that, or websites and stuff like that, you'll be thinking, why are they doing it? It's not because of the greater good of the 3%, it's because of the greater good of the other percent, because they're using it to sell products on the dark web.
Oh, well, I certainly did. I don't know whether we can define that as a fun fact.
Well, it's just good to know.
Yeah, no, that is actually very interesting, because I would have no idea. I would have thought, actually, if someone had asked me before, I'd have thought it'd be the other way around. 97% is Google and 3% is the dark web. It's quite frightening, that actually.
Yeah, it is, because people just don't like to feel being monitored, because obviously with most search engines now, it feels like they're tracking your movement and all that kind of thing. So people find alternative ways to get online, and obviously using VPNs and other ways of actually staying behind closed doors. But that's just one of those fun facts out there. But when it comes to marketing, one of the things I always say to people is like, give it time, because if you actually don't give it, if you're in the care of the right team, people who actually really know the industry, they know what they're talking about, and they understand the criteria involved, give them time to execute. Because, for example, if you do an SEO campaign, you have to do technical SEO campaign, you have to do on-site campaigns, you have to do off-site campaign, you have to do backlinks, you have to do press release. There's quite a lot involved, and you can, Rome was not built in one day. So once you actually obviously, get your arsenal together, get the right team in place, get the right content in place, post it as regularly as possible, be consistent for a time period of time. And the most important part is when you get to a measurable result, don't stop there, keep going. Because the moment you stop, you snooze. And when you snooze, you lose. Because your competitors are either throwing bigger money at it, a bigger team, a bigger manpower at it, to obviously try to get ultimately the same result you're trying to get. So don't get too comfortable doing it for 12 months and think, oh yeah, we've got to page 1 now we relax. No, keep going. Now start acquiring new keywords. Now start acquiring new strategies basically that's working for your competitors. And one thing I always also say as well, especially around things like SEO per se, is don't go after top keywords because you will run out of money. Instead, go after the low hanging fruits. Okay, what do I mean by this? So a search term can actually have maybe only 10 people searching for it every month. Okay, you probably think that's very little. Yes, it is. But if you think about it, there's 10 here, there's 10 on a different keyword, 10, 10, 10. By the time you actually had 10 together, that's 100 already. But if you actually went using the same resources to go after one keyword, you probably might be there, and obviously probably don't even win that battle, and someone else to snatch it off you because they have bigger budget, they have bigger team to basically, and bigger resources to actually execute it. So that's kind of sorry.
And how important is SEO? Because obviously, not how important is SEO. How important is that first page of Google now? I mean, bearing in mind it's only 3% now. You just told me, but take that aside. because that, if you look at the old days, you look at search and you just like bang, 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 bang. Whereas now, you got the bloody adverts up there, then you've got something else over here. So how because I consider myself to be online savvy, but even sometimes when I'm searching, I've searched online mechanic, for example, and I've clicked the first one, and then I think, hang on a minute, this is an online mechanic. So how important is that now as compared to what it was like in the past?
Right. So one of the things I'll probably say is like you and I, basically, if you probably see a search result with an ad, you're more likely to skip it and go to a more non. And it's not just you; it's literally everybody does it because there's this element, is a psychological thing. There's this element of feeling tracked when you go into an ad campaign. But if you have to go into a website, you still be most likely tracked, but it's not obvious that you're being tracked. So by default, we kind of lean more towards that approach of seeing something more organic, which is why it's called organic search result. And people actually also think sometimes it's about being on page 1 of Google and being at the top of Google. Sometimes it's not about being on number 1. Sometimes it's just about being on the first page, because what tends to happen is if I come to a website, a search result term, okay, and I see that obviously there's, let's say, 3 results, okay, I might click into the first website and bounce back out because I realize it's taking too long to load. And I come back to the next one. And then maybe I went to the next one. The intro, the first 100 words actually in your content is very important. So I'm actually coming to that and be like, nah, this is not actually really answering what I'm looking for. Then you go down to the next one and the next one and the next one. So everything on page 1 is safe. But anything on page 2 is a mortuary. So that's the only thing I always try for, is obviously try to help my clients get their keywords to page 1. And once you're actually on there, it's all about maintaining your position, and over time you keep rising because Google basically sees your other activities online and it rewards you accordingly. So that basically is, in a nutshell, basically it's one of the important things to bear in mind. It's not always about being on top of number 1 of Google. Basically, it's about being on page 1. That's the most important part.
Okay, and then we just talked before about what's the hardest thing about online marketing. What's the best thing about online marketing?
Wow. When the client is making a lot of money. Because if they're doing really well, it just basically means it's a knock-on effect. Basically, it means they'll be more than happy to spend more with ourselves, and the more they can spend with us, the greater result we can get for them. One of them basically is a mirror manufacturing company. So they provide mirrors that, the elegant ones, not just the everyday mirrors, they're elegant, £100, £200 a pop type of products. And they are shipping this thing like literally like sweets. This thing is just going off the shelves and making millions on a monthly basis just selling this thing. If the website is down for, let's say, 2 hours, they'll probably lose about £10,000. Yeah. So what do they actually have in place? First, they make sure this website is robust enough to actually handle any agile sudden changes in the website user base or anything of that nature. 2, it's secure, meaning obviously because it's got a lot of traction, it will probably be a prominent opportunity for any online cyber criminal. Basically, it'll be like sweet spot because they know they can get a lot, they can manipulate it more, and there's a lot of data they can take away from that. And the third one basically is like they understand the importance of actually investing a £1 and getting a £2 return.
Yes.
And most businesses don't actually get that part wrong. So for example, if you have a product that it's not your main product, you're not the manufacturer, you're just a reseller. So you're probably making about 10, 20% profit margin. But then you actually run a campaign that is taking about, let's say, 50% of the value of your product. So by the end of the day, you're literally thinking, yes, we're making £1. We've just sold, 100 products, and we've actually made, you probably think 20% of the 100 products, right? But wrong. They've actually done their calculations wrong. They're already at a loss from that beginning, because anything that's actually costing you 50% of your marketing budget, it's not worth that investment. It should actually be just about 10%.
Yes.
And it's about optimizing that 10%. How can you spend less and get more back in return? And until you can actually understand that metrics, you could actually be wasting tons and tons of money. Another similar case study is a client they were spending about they spending about £3,000 a month, okay, to acquire leads that would generate them about £30,000 worth of business. But then we said to them, like, if you take that same £3,000 and invest it in SEO, okay, you can actually still be making the same money, but spending less. They didn't believe us, and we proved it to them. Now, literally just like, when do we renew? Well, where do we sign? Is all they asked. They didn't want to know. They just say, where do we sign? Because they trust obviously our industry expertise and our industry knowledge. So it just goes to show, basically, sometimes it's not about just doing everything just because people are around you are doing it. Don't go start opening new accounts. It actually even does you more harm than good if you start opening more social media accounts that you're not posting on. Because Google sees it as laziness. Google sees it as laziness. You can open a blog page as well and stop posting, or not. Your last post is 2018. Google sees it. It's just like laziness. Google likes when there's new things coming up. So if you're a business, for example, where you're in the business of creating service, for example, we focus a lot more on home improvements and construction. So that means they have a lot of case studies, a lot of portfolios they want to show. Architects as well, the same thing. Show it and make it very location specific. So if you've done a property for someone in London, say, right, property development for this client in London, put in their postcode. What you're actually essentially showing there is basically I'm not saying put their address on the thing, but I'm saying be very geographic location specific. The reason why is when people actually when Google is basically reviewing the content to show its users, and it sees that you're actually geographically situated around what that user is actually looking for, it's more likely to put your content in front of them. And guess what? There's a saying, fact tells, story sells. When people actually read your case studies and they can actually see how you've actually helped someone solve their pain points in a very easy and very efficient and even to top it up, take the testimonial that the customer actually gave you from any review platform, put it in there, and then put a source of the link back to where the review came from. So it gives validation as well to that. And you'll be surprised. This actually works magic. Literally, like we've seen one of our clients, he closed a 60-unit deal, basically off the back of an extension not an extension, a renovation he did for ex-police police station building. So basically they took a police station building and renovated it to flats and stuff like that. And that case study basically generated them another business similar to that, because someone came to their website, read that case study, and these are the type of guys that we actually want to work with, or these are the type of team we want to work with, and they won a new business off the back of that. So ask me if that guy actually renewed his SEO package. Absolutely he did.
Of course he did. Why wouldn't you? So that's been really useful. We're coming to the end of the hour, so we've been through quite a lot of things. But just to recap on the growth hacks, and I want to ask you about your book. So scrap what isn't working. Marketing content, making sure it's all aligned, and almost like the journey is the same, and you get into the right place. Are you prominent? Making sure that you're marketing that asset effectively, working with the right tools. And you were talking about, you gave the example of the contact form, making sure it's going to the internal CRM, etc. And don't be a stranger to innovation, which I thought was really good. And you gave a couple of examples in terms of, postcard summaries, which is obviously really important because people don't read everything. Audio read, which is a good idea, and also putting videos. And as we were discussing, you don't need to have Steven Spielberg producing your video. You can just go, especially nowadays. I mean, some of these. Let me put it this way: my phone now give me better quality video than the video I used to use 15 years ago. Let me put it that way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No.
Especially the iPhones, they're just ridiculous with the level of color contrast and everything that they
Yes.
actually do. It's just tremendously amazing. And to even edit it as well, it's like there's a lot of tools out there.
Yeah,
Free tools are out there that people can actually use in 5 minutes. You can, one of my clients actually said it does is whilst he's actually on the toilet. Don't ask me why, but he said he just finds it a very useful time to actually kind of just do a quick edit on his videos. And he's doing wonders for him. He's in the construction space. And he said literally people listen to his videos and just reach out to him and say, hey, I need the help for extension. And it's just, don't be a stranger to obviously data. Like content is everywhere. Content is king, and content is basically can be created from people just seeing what you get up to. You're on site. Hey, good morning, guys. I'm on site, on the client. Obviously, don't disclose the client's area, or house or what have you. But obviously, kind of just be like, show them what's actually going on. These are some of the rebels. These are some of the, your stuff. Just tell people, obviously say, oh, maybe there was a problem, for example. You experienced a concrete issue where the concrete was actually wrongly installed. And it was like, well, this are commonly, if you have something like this around your property, this is an indication that this XYZ is wrong. Does that kind of make sense? So everyone obviously will see that video and be like, go to the house and be like, oh, wait a minute, let me find this area you're speaking about and see if the same thing happens. And if you're experiencing the same problem, give me a shout. How easy was that?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, exactly. I mean, it's becoming a lot easier to get your message across. And I know people always talk about influencers, but it's not just about influencers. A lot of these people were not influencers before they were influencers. Well, and it's about having the bravery to put yourself out there and actually, to be honest, there's lots of influencers that don't give you any value. But if you've got valuable information to give to people in a space, such as if you're talking about their construction, then lots of people don't want to do it. So you raising your head above the parapet already takes you above the majority of other people who won't be prepared to do it.
Absolutely. And that goes back to that being innovative. Use the resources around you. It doesn't cost you much. It just basically requires you to actually have a strategy behind it, and it has to be in line with your ultimate goal, because there's no point you posting something that has nothing to do with your business does. Like, for example, posting about you being on a yacht. Who does that help? That's a personal goal, not a business goal type of thing. So which is what I meant by it has to kind of all align with your actual objective. So if it's brand awareness, if it's sales, if it's, more email list, wherever it is, just make sure it's in line with it.
No, exactly. So last question, or sort of last question, but it's a long one. So you've obviously got a book, Lost Now Found.
Correct.
The Secrets to Unlocking Your Hidden Potential.
That's my little beauty there.
Excellent. So why did you write it?
It's basically just to help anyone that actually feels lost. So being lost sometimes it's not a bad thing. It means you've actually arrived at a destination where you have to decide whether to go left or turn right. And ultimately, the book basically kind of just stands for how to it's not telling you something you don't already know. It's telling you basic things you already know, but it's just kind of reminding you that obviously you are special. Everyone is here for a reason. Everyone is here for it's just the odds of actually just being alive. Like the odds are very slim. And it's just basically appreciating those little things, understanding things like your strengths, your weaknesses, and understanding how to complement your weaknesses with your strengths. Understanding the mindset is very, very important. You can have all the money in the world, but with the wrong mindset, you can literally lose everything in one day. That's why most people who actually win lottery end up back being broke. It's a mindset problem. So ideally the book was actually to kind of reflect my journey in those dark days, basically, of how I actually managed to self-diagnose myself and put myself out of that rabbit hole, or that sinkhole, should I say, and became, the Alex that everybody obviously know, like, and trust in today's world. But obviously those dark days are now gone, but I would love to obviously continue to inspire. We sold about 3,000 copies of this book using Facebook marketing, like you were saying before. I would just basically like to continue to empower people and reach more lives and inspire more people to be great and do amazing stuff and change the world beyond the way we see it. That's essentially the book. But most people actually, some of the constructive criticism I received back is the book does not actually kind of relate to me personally, in the sense of like, I wasn't sharing more about me. I just, at the intro, I was like, yeah, this is about me. But then I keep quiet and talk more about, the whole process. But my next book definitely is probably going to be an extension of this one. which is actually going to incorporate more of my personal journey. How I've used some of the content from the first book to help myself, and it's more relatable that way. Unfortunately, I'm selling 2 books, but buy one, get one free, I would say.
Well, it's like anything. I mean, look at Netflix. They have one series, then they have about 15,000 series. So
Yeah.
if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And if you like the book and they like the journey and they like the content, write another one.
Exactly.
So that's great. So where can people get the book?
Yeah. So if you just go to my website, Alex Onalaja.com, if you can probably write that, just write Lost Now Found. That should probably tend to come up as well, or maybe just put Lost Now Found Alex Onalaja. That would also come up as well in search engine. You can imagine I'm an agency, so I make sure that obviously comes up when people search on most search platforms. But yeah, it can be found on my website, my official website, on there. It's currently, I believe it's coming up on Amazon as well, but that's probably something for the near future. But right now, it's available on my website.
No problem. What I'll do is I'll drop that link into this podcast description and the podcast notes as well. So anyone who's watching this or listening to it, then just head over to the show notes and then you'll be able to pick that up. So no problem. So we come to the end. So I always ask people, what's one thing, if someone's listened to it, or I can't imagine they are, but they've been distracted, something's happened. If there's one thing that you'd want to get people to take away, so and the topic's obviously about growth hacks and online marketing, what would the one thing that you'd say, right, if you've listened to nothing else, definitely take this away from this podcast?
Well, that would probably be a student of long life learning. And I'm not referring to like academic only. I'm talking about live in general. Live has a very funny way of teaching us a lesson, and be open to learning from people that are wise. I've looked up to you from a very long time. You've always known this, and just surround yourself with people with wisdom, and it rubs up on you over time. They always say, like, if you're if you have 6 friends that are millionaires, you're probably next. It's probably the same thing. It's just learning from people, and long life learning is something I take very dearly, and I'll highly recommend anyone else to do the same.
No, a very profound thing on which to finish. So Alex, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm 100% positive that people get a lot out of this podcast. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
I'm sure you'll agree that someone's journey is vitally important to give you an understanding of where their knowledge actually comes from, the depth of it, and hence why it's often very hard-earned and extremely valuable. So what I really like about Alex's story is it demonstrates the message that runs through all of my podcasts, which I hope you're starting to pick up. Mindset trumps everything. And if you have the right one, you can, as Alex has, go from being a person who everyone thinks is dumb to becoming a successful entrepreneur and businessman. His journey means that he really understands challenges and is an expert in problem solving because of that experience, and hence the growth hacks he discussed will now help you, the listener and the viewer, to get over any challenges that you may have in online customer acquisition. So there's some real golden gems on there, I thought, from the time you have to capture someone's attention post-pandemic, which has obviously dropped, to the figure 7 reading pattern, and now my favorite saying that I've already started harassing people with and mentioning in every sentence: don't carry your kryptonite around with you. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes at www.thesalesaccelerationformula.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, like, and share with your friends, your colleagues, and anyone else you can. But most of all, keep the feedback coming so that we can continue to improve and give you more of what you like. Hope you really enjoyed the episode. Keep listening and keep growing.